Hey Mama, welcome back to Holistic Moms. I'm your host, Shan Wright. Okay, we have part 2 of the conversation with Leah Blondin today. If you have not listened to part 1, I want you to do that first because in part 1, I actually describe who Leah is and give an intro of her as a person. And then this is the second part of that conversation. We're going to go right into the rest of her story. So go there first, listen to part 1. It's actually a lot shorter. And then come here and listen to part 2. Man, there is so much in this conversation, and there's so much that you can take from it to also take courage in your own holistic wellness and put your intentions into action. So I want you to listen to this conversation and think about what you can do in your own life. I want you to write down that intention, and then I want you to put it into action. And if you're kind of stuck, like, well, I'm not sure how to put this into action, then I want you to book me for a coaching session or even just a discovery call. You can do that at www.theshanwright.com. That's right with the W. And you can chat with me, book me there, and we can just have a chat and help you discover how you can put your intentions into actions. Because remember, our intentions are a hill of beans and they mean nothing. And writing it down on paper is one step, but we've actually got to do the work. So let's do it together and let's take courage together. So I hope you enjoy this conversation and it blesses you today. Hey Mama, are you stressed by the lack of time in the day to do all the things? Are you feeling disconnected from God, your husband, and even your kids because patience and presence seem out of reach? Do you want a healthier body, mind, spirit, and home, but overwhelmed in where to start? Hey, I'm Shan Wright, daughter of the king, wife, mom to 4, RN, wellness coach, and I know very well what it feels like to want to live well, but about to lose it with my very blessed full life. After realizing I can't pour from an empty cup, I tracked my way to whole body wellness and so much peace. If you are ready to cancel the stressed out life, learn tactical, intentional strategies as a mom wearing many hats, find more peace, confidence, and joy raising kingdom kids, then listen in. Come on, Mama, together we got this. Really, God's got this. So go heat up that coffee again and turn your listening ears on. Let's chat. So you left college in interior design, went into nutrition and dietitian, but at the same time going to school, is that when you started your yoga studio and started getting into all of that?
It was after I graduated
Okay.
college. So I graduated college. I was doing a little bit of yoga stuff and health stuff in San Diego, but that is a very saturated market. And I knew back home where I had grown up that there was nothing.
Mm,
And that it would be a wide open market for me to maximize on. So,
yeah.
and I love business. That is like my other thing. We also own a commercial campground and we just love businesses and building businesses and selling businesses. Like it's just fun for me. So I was thinking that way of like, okay, I can
Yeah.
maximize on this market. I know people in the area. I can pretty immediately get them in and make money and do the stuff that I want to do. And yeah, so that's
Yeah,
kind
that
of how
makes
that.
sense because I'm like, you just started a yoga, like that's a big deal and it's business. And then when you ended it, you ended your business, which is also a big deal and a
Mhm.
big decision. But at that same time, so you were going into a yoga studio, you were teaching yoga. Maybe you had some, I don't know, Zen when you were there, but then at home, you were literally depressed, anxious. Is that
Mhm.
true?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in
Wow.
those states, you are calm, when you're sitting doing nothing except moving your body and breathing. Yeah. But ultimately that was still leading me to more anxiety and depression because I was just ignoring it and just trying to cope. And coping doesn't fix the problem. It just helps you cope. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. And then you had said that how many babies do you have? How many kids?
I have 2 kids now, 6 and
Okay.
3.
Okay. And so you said with each one, your depression got worse.
Hmm.
Can you I actually struggled with postpartum anxiety with all
Hmm.
4. and my fourth was the worst. And it actually was during the entire pregnancy, and then really capitalized at the end. So in postpartum. So I felt that when you said it kept getting worse. Can you
Mhm.
go into a little bit about that? And even as far as into it you want to, as to how we're supposed to care for our bodies in pregnancy and postpartum,
Mhm.
especially when you know, we're trying to take care of two people at once at that time,
Mhm.
and how you do that.
Yeah. Or 5 people with four babies in
Yeah,
your
the other ones.
how do you take care of 5 people at once when you don't feel good? So that's really like where my heart is, and what I love kind of specializing in is those moms, because we're doing so much.
Yeah.
We have all the baskets, all the eggs in our baskets, and we think we can do it all. And that's why it's good to have somebody who can outwardly look at your health and help you without, being your mother-in-law or, in your life. Like, those helpers can help with other things, but that's where having like a health coach or a practitioner can be the game changer and fix things a little bit more quickly than it would be to just guess. So when it comes to like postpartum anxiety and depression, especially when it gets worse consecutively with every pregnancy, or in my case, it started in puberty. So
Mhm.
especially if somebody is saying, "Oh, it started when I was 13, 14, 15," and where your hormones are now rising, um, that to me is a very big indicator of several things that are going on in the body. So the game changer for me was understanding about copper overload.
Mm.
So copper will rise as estrogen rises. So in puberty or in pregnancy, estrogen is going to rise. In pregnancy, copper doubles because copper is necessary to create blood vessels in the baby. So it is a necessary nutrient, but too much of a good thing is still too much of a good thing.
Yep.
And copper it's a trace mineral, but it is also a metal. We have copper plumbing in our homes. It is literally a conductor of electricity.
Mhm.
So if you have too much copper and too much electricity being conducted in your body, that equals anxiety. That equals depression. So it can actually, that rise in estrogen, that rise in copper will actually raise norepinephrine, which translates into adrenaline, and then will lower your dopamine. So your neurotransmitters get all kinds of wacky when there is too much free copper in the body. So like I said, copper is necessary at certain levels. It has to be very balanced with zinc. And when that ratio gets off, or there is too much copper free floating in the body, it gets sent into your tissues. So some of the first tissues that it goes to get stored in, because your body is like, "Oh, this is too much. We need to protect the human." And it's going to send it somewhere. So it'll send it to like your fat. You can gain a lot of weight when you have a high toxin load, because that is a safe place for toxins and metals to be stored,
Mm.
instead of like your reproductive organs, because your body is going to protect your reproductive organs so you can have more babies and continue the life process on. But the liver is also a big place that it goes. Your gallbladder and your bile production is what carries excess copper out of the body. So if your bile isn't working, if you have gallstones, if your digestion is slowed, if you are constipated, that is going to allow copper to recirculate through your system instead of being excreted in your poop. So that's what we wanted to do. The bile is going to pick up any extra toxins, copper, anything, and it's going to carry it out of the body. So when that process isn't working, that's when I see a lot of free copper free floating in the body. And the brain is the second place that it's going to go. And the brain is controlling like those neurotransmitters and where anxiety is going to stem from. So in my case, that was what was happening, was all this extra free copper was going back to be recirculated. Because back in the day, when I first got started, it was normal for me to like poop once a week. And when somebody told me, "Oh, you're supposed to poop every day," I was like, "What? No, no way!" Like, totally had no idea.
Oh my,
So that was
that's
kind
funny.
of when you talk about like a root cause like that, you
Yeah.
kind of keep got to going through those layers of the onion to figure out, okay, it's not just the extra copper that's the problem. It's that I can't get the extra out. um, and that my bile wasn't flowing very well. And I was so deficient in other micronutrients that support the liver in its methylation process and a whole host of other different things. So copper, like I said, in pregnancy will double with your pregnancy. From the beginning of your pregnancy to the end of your pregnancy, copper is going to double, which is a lot of copper. Because the baby needs it. But again, very common in pregnancy for the liver not to be working well, especially in this consecutive pregnancies. If you're not doing micronutrient testing and doing very specific supplementation for you and your body, not just a general prenatal, but like very specifically taking what is deficient, that is going to make the problem worse. So those are always big hints when a mom is like, yeah, it's gotten worse through every single pregnancy, or hey, it started in puberty. That tells me that there is something going on with estrogen, that there's something going on with the liver, and there's something going on with that recirculation and that copper to zinc ratio that is off, that needs to be dealt with, because it's going to happen. Copper is going to double as you get pregnant. That's a given. But if your liver and your bile are working well and you're not constipated, it's not going to come out as such an outward issue for, brain symptoms. So
Yeah. How did you really figure this out with yourself?
I read a lot. I listen a lot to people who are smarter than me. I'm just always learning. And so for anything, that's just all I do. I'm like, I'm not super special. All I do is educate myself. So I started to dive into the work of Dr. Carl Pfeiffer and William Walsh. They were really specializing in like neuropsychiatric issues, schizophrenia, depression, postpartum, anxiety, those types of things. And I was like, oh, well, maybe this is something I haven't done before, because I had done a lot in my decade of health, but I was like, I've never done a micronutrient test, which honestly is the first place that every single person needs to start, because your micronutrients make up your cells, and your cells make up your organs, and your organs make up your organ systems and your tissues. And like, it all starts with your micronutrients and how your cells are functioning and detoxing. So I always say, if you cannot detox, if your cells can't detox on their own, you have no business doing a detox, because you're going to feel worse and it's going to recirculate the toxins. And like, there's a whole host of things that can happen if you're not fully prepared for proper detoxing. So I started with the micronutrient testing, which is an intracellular test. So that means we're looking inside your cells over the past 4 to 6 months at how things are absorbing into your cells, versus an extracellular test, which is what we've all done, like with a doctor, where you go in, they pull your blood. And that's essentially a snapshot in time of what is going on in your serum, which is outside of your cell. So I did both of those at the same time, and then combined them for like a full report of what was going on with my micronutrient status regarding copper and zinc and ceruloplasmin, which is the transport protein for copper. So that's really the problem of the free copper issue that I see a lot of postpartum women dealing with, is low ceruloplasmin. Because if you don't have enough ceruloplasmin, you're going to have excess free copper. And ceruloplasmin comes from your adrenals. So a lot of people, we hear so much about adrenal fatigue and all that stuff on the internet, but no one's ever really diving deeper as to what is going on with the adrenals. And almost every single person who's having adrenal problems is severely deficient in vitamin B5, which is essential for adrenal function, for ceruloplasmin creation. So again, it's like, we got to go a little deeper in those onion layers, instead of just saying, oh, we have adrenal fatigue, I'm going to drink a whole bunch of orange juice and collagen and, that's going to fix it. No, it's not going to fix it, because you need certain B vitamins, you need certain things to make it work. And that's where that micronutrient test comes in. So I just started experimenting with myself on those things. and started to research more about what could help. So I started taking methylene blue, which is a dye, essentially a blue dye that was originally used back in the world wars to treat malaria. So it's an antibacterial, it's an antifungal, but it also has some really great PubMed articles on copper utilization and supporting the detox of excess. So that was really when getting that data and then being very specific about what I was supplementing with that's when my husband was like, wow, you went from a 9 to a 2, because I was starting to clear this stuff out appropriately
Yeah.
and balance all of those micronutrients. So in my case, which everybody is a little different, but in my case, I was severely deficient in biotin and my B vitamins. The rest of them, the antioxidants, amino acids, all the other stuff on the micronutrient panel was solid. It was that I was just so deficient in biotin. I needed about quadruple the recommended dose, the RDA, to get myself back on board to a sufficient state. So that along with methylene blue and, doing some coffee enemas and making sure I wasn't constipated and recirculating and that bile support and the liver support with the B vitamins, which controls methylation, was exactly what I needed. And I, came out on the other side. I was like, wow, that was a lot easier than everything else that I've tried for the past decade of time. All the pharmaceuticals, all the other testing, which is still valuable. Like I had to get rid of my infections and those types of things. But I was like, man, literally nobody is talking about micronutrients outside of, your doctor will run maybe B12 and vitamin D, sometimes maybe folate. But again, those numbers are only looking at what is circulating in your blood and not what is getting inside to the cell.
Mm-hmm.
So same with hormones. You can have plenty of thyroid hormone in your blood, but is thyroid hormone getting into the cell to do its job? That's where we see a lot of hypothyroid. You can have the hypothyroid symptoms, but your labs come back normal. And that's because they're only doing very basic serum testing, which is valuable in a certain sense. But I think we need a wider vantage point of what's going on internally to make wise decisions and wise supplement suggestions. So you're not wasting money and you're not wasting time, just kind of guessing and.
Yeah, I know. So yes, gosh, all of that is so good. And some things that we do as just Americans, we say things like, I'm anemic, or I have this issue, I have this problem, and therefore I do this. Instead of asking, well, why do you have that problem? What is missing? God made your body perfect. What is missing that, like a micronutrient? And so I love that, because that's how my brain works too, is whenever, my brain works this way in other problems outside the body too. It's just like, what is underneath of that? What is the root of that? And so let's just take anemia, since that popped in my head. And a lot of moms, when they're pregnant, and are going through pregnancy and postpartum, and I just hear this a lot. Actually, maybe it's because I was having a conversation with my sister earlier, but that word anemia. So it's like, what do you say to something like that? That diagnosis that's pretty common. Someone's like, I'm just going to go get a blood transfusion. Like, how do you say that is?
Well, I always tell people, like, understand what's going on before you get pregnant. And I know that's not always everybody's case, but that's the best way to be preventative and to not have to deal with those issues in pregnancy. So I always just ask questions and, okay, what are all the things that can contribute to anemia? Like parasites. Is there a parasite problem? That is they will literally feed off of iron. So in that case, it's like, oh, if you're going to take an iron supplement, or you're going to take beef liver, or you're going to get a transfusion, literally you're just feeding the bugs and you're feeding the infection. You're not supporting your overall micronutrient status, because something is eating the iron so it can proliferate, which I don't want people's bugs problems to proliferate. So again, like, let's take care of this. You can't detox parasites while you're pregnant, but you can do that beforehand to better prepare for that. A lot of times something that's so common that I see is H. pylori infections. So H. pylori is a bacteria that lives in your stomach and it burrows into your stomach lining, and it whacks out your stomach acid so you can't fight off those infections. But it also inhibits your ability to absorb B12 from your food. So a lot of times when the people are like, I'm anemic, I'm eating more meat, but it's not helping. It's like, well, again, what other infections are underlying in there that could be causing your micronutrients that support iron regulation to not be working so well? Another thing I see is internal bleeding. Most people don't know that they have internal bleeding happening. So that would be like an occult blood marker on a stool test. And so if you have any kind of ulcer, which that H. pylori can cause ulcers, or hemorrhoids or polyps or something along those lines that's causing internal bleeding, yeah, you're going to be low in iron because you're internally bleeding and there are problems that need to be restored. So that's why I don't want to label anybody. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I don't ever diagnose people with anemia, but I can show them patterns that are trending towards anemia, and I can show them underlying what is going on that could be contributing to that problem, because there's always a reason why.
Yeah.
Your body isn't just anemic because like there's always a reason. And there's multiple reasons, the couple infections I already listed, the bleeding, SIBO. So all kinds of things that can contribute to that problem. Once you are in pregnancy, there's only so much you can do because you can't detox. So again, your micronutrients, we can check those. We can see what's absorbing into your cell. Maybe you just need some cell membrane support. Maybe you need some proper GI support, some soothing to the GI system in the meantime, so you can better absorb those nutrients. So there's lots of reasons why. And honestly, the iron transfusions, I've yet to see somebody get one and be like, wow, I feel so great. Usually they're like, I feel so much worse. And it's like, yeah, because that's not fixing the problem. Outside of like surgery, mainstream medicine is not fixing any problems. And trust me, I went to all the GI specialists at Scripps Hospital, and they just, here's a pill, here's a pill, here's a pill. And come to find out, for me, I had strep, I had E. coli, I had staph infections, all kinds of bugs proliferating in my gut that were causing inflammation. And so you got to control that inflammation and do something really productive about it, so you don't have to deal with it forever. Because if you're not doing that underlying testing, if you are anemic in pregnancy and you're just going to say, oh, well, like I'll just, take this supplement during pregnancy, and you never actually continue to get deeper into the root cause, H. pylori can cause stomach cancer down the line. If you ignore it and you ignore the ulcer and you ignore the infection and you don't self-treat the infection, along down the line, it's going to cause a problem. And that is for lots of different things. Like Epstein-Barr was one that came back on my labs originally. And Epstein-Barr is oncogenic. It causes cancer when not taken care of. And I just cannot, in good reasoning, say, hey, let's just ignore it and just see what happens. Like it's not a good enough answer, no matter if you're pregnant or not pregnant. So that's always my recommendation, is just, you need to go a little bit deeper and prepare really well. Yes, it might be money. Some people are like, oh, it's so much money to get the lab testing done. It's like, well, it's a lot of money to have a baby, to take care of a baby for the next 18 plus years. That's going to be a lot more money than, spending a few hundred or a few $1,000s over here to make sure that you're fully prepared to take care of 4 children. Because if you don't feel good, you're not going to have fun taking care of 4 children. You know what I mean? Like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. So yes, I love how you are looking at these labs. So I had like 3 questions at once come, and so then they all canceled each other out. But share what you do with these labs, what you're actually doing when someone comes in and they're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the money forth and I'm going to get all my lab work looked at. Can you just share a little bit a deeper dive into what you're specifically doing with someone. And what is the, do you help mostly women? Like, what are you mostly dealing with?
I mostly work with women.
Yeah.
I do work with some men, but mostly women, especially in like the postpartum, or they're preparing for pregnancy or preparing for postpartum. A lot of women even in menopause. So those big hormonal fluctuations in life, like in between there. Same with a lot of kids too. I think my youngest has been 10 that we've done micronutrient testing
Oh,
on, and that was a
wow.
game changer for her. But mostly postpartum women. And I get a lot of questions of, hey, can you just do a hormone test, or can you just do this test? And I've really stopped doing the single testing because, again, it is not giving us the full picture. And a lot of times it leaves more questions than answers. So the only one that I will do alone is the micronutrient panel, since that is the basis of everything that is going on in your body. So some people just want to do the micronutrient panel on its own. That's safe to do in pregnancy for sure, postpartum, at any point in life, no matter the age. But my full program is really where we go super deep. So in that program, we do 6 labs to start. And the first 2 in your first session are all about nutrition, because I want to use food as medicine first and foremost, and not just give you a bunch of pills to take. So we figure out, what is your metabolic type? How much, what macronutrient ratios should you be eating? What is your dominant endocrine organ, which has a lot to do with how you maintain your weight. If you want to lose weight or you want to gain weight, that has a lot to do with your dominant endocrine organ. So we look at that, and I pair it with a food sensitivity panel, because food sensitivities are a major trigger to inflammation and to intestinal permeability and infections. So those 2 come together for our first session, and we just really dial in how we should be eating. And that's where we start, because you have to eat food for every day for the rest of your life. So that should be the foundation.
Yeah.
So we start with those 2, and for about 30 days, everyone's kind of working through that and working through those changes. And then the second round of us working together is going over the other 4 labs. So that is like the Dutch hormone panel, that is your micronutrient panel, a stool test to look at infections, and the HTMA to look at mineral excretion and any heavy metal issues going on. So those together, we can really start peeling those layers of the onion. And that's where I will build a highly customized supplement protocol to help eliminate those infections. I always do a custom multivitamin that's custom compounded for each person based off of their micronutrient levels and all the things. And then from there, there's an additional 4 follow-ups. So that's kind of like a 6-month to a
Yeah.
year-long program. But that's really what it takes to get better and stay better for life. So I just did not want to do one over here and one over here. And then that's the majority of people that I see, is they've already done the lab tests with other people who just did their hormones and just did the stool test. And, you can't do a stool test without the micronutrients, because if you're deficient in zinc, no wonder you have gut problems, because zinc has a lot to do with how your gut is operating. So it's just, a lot of practitioners out there are missing the main components that we should be building upon, which is why everybody is honestly so jaded with the functional health field right now. They're like, I've already done all this, Leah. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't put it all together and done it all at the same time. And there's a very specific order of operations that needs to happen. Like I said before, you can't detox if your cells can't detox, because that's the first detox level, is, can your cells get the trash out? If they can't get the trash out, do not expect your parasite protocol to get the parasites out, which is why everybody is, oh yeah, I just do parasite protocols 4 times a year, every year, forever and ever and ever and ever. And it's like, you should not have to do a parasite protocol really more than once, or else we know that things are recirculating, or you haven't addressed the bile and they're just continuously laying eggs up in your liver like parasites like to do. So there's a lot of layers that need to be unraveled, that can only really be unraveled with working with someone for a greater length of time than a a 3-month protocol off of an HTMA. Like that's not going to get you a whole lot of places. It's a start, but then you got to hit up the next practitioner and hit up the next one and hit up the next one because the first one didn't do it all. So I'm very strict with what I allow in my practice because I don't want to waste anybody's time.
Yeah.
I don't want to do
Yeah.
that anymore.
Are you only local?
No, I work all over.
So
I mean,
you do virtual, online?
yep, all virtual. Pretty much any country in the world, we can order labs to.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Something one of my other questions came back to me. So, you were talking about cancer. Okay, let's just take cancer and other things that we think that are genetic and we're just bound to get them and they're just going to happen to our bodies because they happen to our parents, they happen to our grandparents, and it's just a way of life. Cancer is just there.
Mhm.
What would you say to that?
Yeah. So that's kind of like a cop out that makes it easy for you to have an excuse. And now I think I was just reading a book and I think scientists believe that it's like 10 or to 20% genetics and like 80% your lifestyle and the
Wow.
epigenetic factor. So whenever ever anyone says, "Oh, my grandpa had that," or "Oh, my mom had that," and "My grandma had that," well, yes, genes are passed down, but so are deficiencies and so are overloads. Like copper in specifically is passed down from the mother to the baby.
Mhm.
Because that's totally a thing.
Yep.
Same with infections. If you have infections when you're pregnant, most likely those infections will be passed on to your child because you're literally making a blueprint of yourself. So that's, again, it goes back to properly preparing because you can alter your genetic expression by taking the right supplements and drinking the right water and making sure that there's no environmental triggers that are causing those bad genes to turn on to have to do something about the problem at hand. So it's just, we got to look at what else is passed down from parent to baby and grandparent to parent to baby. There's multiple other things. But there definitely is a genetic component to it, but that is not the end all be all and is essentially just an excuse to not have to do anything about the problem.
Yeah. And like to take it back spiritually, we are to care for our temple and not just say, yeah, I'm going to get this someday in my life. It's just a way of life. It's just what happens. And it's like, I don't think that was God's design. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think he had that in mind. So I love how you value what is in the Bible, what God's already given us and spoken word given to you through Holy Spirit. And you use that in a concordance with all of your research and all of your reading and all of your learning. You use it together. Can you share some things that God's really pointed out to you in the Bible or in spoken word that you're like using it in your practice in how you care for the body, how you fuel the body, what you eat, or something like that?
Yeah. So the first one is just moderation, I think, is a key principle. Obviously, it talks a lot about gluttony
Mm-hmm.
and overeating and drinking too much wine and, those types of things, which can open you up to certain spiritual portals for, demonic
Yeah.
oppression, essentially. And what was really illuminated to me during all of my copper research was what the Bible says about liver and eating liver. And that's like a big no-no, which I'm just like, well, that's kind of random. Why would God put that in there? But it's
Yeah.
got to be for a reason. And a lot of the Babylonian cultures would use the liver for divination purposes. So nutritionally, everything in moderation, kind of listening to what the Bible says about how you are eating, the shellfish and stuff, like everything that the Bible says to not eat, like pigs, liver, the oysters and shellfish and those types of things. When you think about how all of those things function in nature currently, they are all cleaning up debris. Pigs
Mm.
are known for they'll eat anything, they're known for parasite infections. Same with clams and oysters. If you put them all in it, have you seen the pictures there's two tanks next to each other? Both started out really dirty, and the ones with the oysters and clams turns out to be clean, and the other one without them stays dirty because they literally will feed off of, they'll pick up heavy metals, they'll pick up debris, they'll pick up all kinds of stuff from the ocean water. It's how God designed the oceans to be filtered, just like you need a filter in your pool. Pigs are the filter for the land. Those ocean animals are the filters for the waters. And then your liver is literally your filter for your body.
Wow.
So people want to argue and say, oh, the liver doesn't store anything. That's incorrect because you can look at thousands of biopsies of the liver and look at the heavy metal content and the copper content and the microplastics. Is something I've been really into researching. Is your liver, kidneys, they will actually store microplastics that get stuck in there because it's not a natural thing that we are exposed to, which the liver struggles with a lot more. All of these artificial chemicals, it doesn't really know what to do with those because they're new and they're
Mm.
man-made, and the body was not made to filter out, like your lungs are not meant to filter out all the smog in New York City or any of these big major cities. Like, it's just too much at some point. Which goes back to making sure that you're maintaining proper nutrient status with your micronutrients and making sure that you don't have any infections so you can optimally live life without problems, because the problems are going to come. We live in a yucky world at this point, and just have to go the extra mile to maintain it and take care of it. So the liver does store things. The brain will store things. Your adipose tissue, the fat on your body, will store things and cause all kinds of havoc hormonally and nutritionally. And so I just found that really curious about what the Bible says of, hey, you shouldn't eat these things. And this is Old Testament stuff, which a lot of Christians are like, oh, well, Jesus
Don't read
came,
it.
so it doesn't matter anymore. And it's like, I don't know how many times Jesus said in the New Testament, like, you need to listen to what the Old Testament says. So like,
Yeah.
that's what he based everything off of, because that's what everything is based off of. So, and it's not like, if you have bacon, you're not going to hell or anything, but it's just like, how do you best take care of your body, to make sure you're not getting those infections and make sure that you're not getting those deficiencies. And it takes a little bit harder work, unfortunately, in this day and age, but,
Yeah.
so are a couple of my favorites out of the Bible there.
Yeah. And because we're in a spiritual war, but we're in physical bodies. And
Mhm.
so, how is the enemy fighting us? He's fighting us through the physical with food and with our body image and with culture around us.
Mhm.
And it's all connected. And I think a lot of times we think going to spiritual war is just going in your prayer closet and fighting that way, when really it's your holistic life you have to fight this war. As a
Right.
believer, like we have to come to the fight fully prepared and not just forget our body really matters here.
Right.
Being that you're so in the holistic health world, what is some ways that you think the enemy is really fighting in that space?
Well, exactly what you said and what we've talked about this whole time is like, if I'm sick in bed with depression and anxiety and I can't love on my children and I can't help other people feel better and I can't make good money, how do I tithe to my church? How do I get up to go to church?
Yeah.
How do I help people if I am bedridden?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the poisons, a lot of the environmental issues, a lot of the mental issues from these micronutrient imbalances hold people back from understanding and living out their purpose. And I feel very blessed to have known, it's always been pretty clear to me what my purpose was. And I've always prayed about it. Even when I was involved in the new age stuff, I was always still going to church and praying to God, to guide me, which is what led me to, my whole testimony from the beginning. So if I had just, I was 21 when I really got sick. I was like just starting my life as an adult. Like I was still a baby at 21,
Yeah.
And if I had gone down the route of continuing with, well, I've done the mainstream medical, that's all there is. I had gotten a DUI at 21. I was doing terrible things at that age. And if I had just continued to drink like that and had continued to say, I'm just going to stay on these meds for the rest of my life and never go deeper. Yeah, it cost me money to go deeper, but it also gave me my entire life back. And again, if you are confused about what your purpose is in life, I really think getting your body clearer will help you understand what that purpose is. And it might not be helping other people get healthier. Maybe it's just being a better mom and being more present and not giving them seeing your children seeing your anxiety play out, because my children were terrified of me when I was full of rage and sadness. And they were always just like, what is going on? Like, I should be the happiest ever. Like nothing's actually wrong in my life. We have a house. We've got plenty of money for food. I have 2 beautiful children and a super awesome husband. Like, why am I sad? Why do I want to stay in bed all day? And that was just not, that was clearly the enemy's tactic of, hey, Leah's here to do something really great for the kingdom of God. And how do I knock that down? How do I push her down over and over and over again? And it was through hormones, and it was through deficiencies, and it was through physical issues that would keep me mentally down and keep me spiritually down. So I think getting clear in your body, it's like this onion, like we have our physical body, and that's protecting our mind, and it's protecting our soul and our spirit. And you just got to keep pulling those layers back to really understand what your purpose is on this planet. And we all have one. It's just not clear because our minds aren't clear.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. I love all of that. That's exactly what I wanted the listeners to hear, is how are, our physical body is way more than just, carrying us around, and what we put into it, the food, even what we cook our food in, and what we purchase. Like, the enemy has these tricks everywhere. He is the angel of light. He is deceptive. And we just, as believers, I think we have to be curious, using your word. We have to be curious, and we have to be aware and be like, is this little thing that I think is insignificant, is this actually affecting me inside? And it could be. You have to ask those questions. You have to think about it, which actually brings me to, I think you have, if this is still the case, I think I heard you had some kind of free resource or something that people can get a hold of.
Yeah, I do. I call it my starter guide. So this is for people who are like, I'm not ready to spend the money. I just need to do what I can now for free. And it's a 3-part worksheet series. One is a life wheel, where you are analyzing all these aspects of your life. How is your health? How is your adventure? How's your creativity? How are your finances? Like all the things that are important for living a healthy, happy life. You can rate that and start brainstorming little micro ways that you can start making changes. The second one in that series is a body, mind, spirit guide. So it's broken up from body, mind, spirit, and you go in and you rate all these line items on a scale of 1 to 10. And then you can go brainstorm again, little ways to change it. Are you drinking enough water? Do you have a relationship with God? Like all of these different things. And you can go, okay, well, maybe I'll go research finding a new church. Okay, maybe I'll, go start filling up water from a friend's house who has a good water filter. Just little things that don't have to cost you money can make a really big impact on your health in all the ways. So most people think of health as just physical, doing the lab testing, feeling better in your physical body. But there's financial health too. If you're not financially healthy, again, how are you going to tithe to your church? How are you going to give to people's mission trips? How are you going to start a business that is going to impact other people in their lives? So, those are the things about health that I want to really point out to other people because it's multifaceted. And those are the things that we have to pass down to our children is the education on financial health and the education on your physical health and your mental well-being, and letting those next generations know how important these things are and teaching them those skills of, hey, fill out this worksheet. To your 12-year-old can fill out the same worksheet and understand how her life is being impacted by her choices that she's making right now, and how that could be totally different if she just made some little micro movements forward instead of staying stuck where you are. You know what I mean? So,
oh, I love that.
yeah.
Okay,
And
so
the other one,
go ahead.
The last one, so that it's a 3-part series, and the last one is just a food log, a food mood poop journal is what I call it, where you can just start taking inventory of what are you doing right now? Because most people, if you write down what you're eating and then you write down how you feel for the day, it's pretty clear that my morning, breakfast of oatmeal makes me tired because, I'm not eating enough protein. I'm not eating enough fat. I'm not pooping this day. No wonder I have anxiety, because all of your toxins are staying inside your body instead of coming out. So that's the other aspect of that free resource, is just take some inventory and see what you're currently doing and how to make those little micro changes.
Okay. Yes, I love that. I was going to say, I need to do it for one. I haven't done it yet. I didn't know all the ins and outs of it. And then I'm a wellness accountability coach. I really focus on accountability. So I'm going to encourage all my listeners and all my Facebook group friends, all of that, I want to hold you accountable to doing this, because we have to get curious and ask ourselves questions about our holistic person, and not just continue to be stuck and in survival mode of motherhood. No, that season is very long. Like take each day and have your body live on purpose for what God has for you. So that is an amazing resource. I'm super excited about that. And then can you just share with everyone where they can find you and get these labs, which I did not know you could do online?
Sure. Yeah. So my business is Life Lab Wellness Co. So lifelabwellnessco.com, Instagram at Life Lab Wellness Co., Facebook at the same, YouTube at the same. So I have all my resources on my website and on my Instagram page through that same name.
Okay, perfect. We're going to put it all in the show notes. And I am so excited for everyone to connect with you. This has been, oh my gosh, so helpful. So helpful. There's just so much. My goal was to have you talk as much as possible and for me to keep my mouth closed. So I tried, because you just have your wealth of wisdom. So thank you, Leah, for being with us today.
Thank you, Shannon. It was really fun.
It was awesome. Hey, Wellness Warrior. I pray that blessed you. And if so, it would bless me big if you would write a 5-star review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Not only would this make me super happy, but it will allow for others to find this show too. Also, I love to chat over on Instagram, so make sure to take a screenshot, share to your Instagram stories, and tag me at @TheShanWright so I can see it and we can keep chatting and bring other moms to chat with us. Until we get to chat again, mama friend, may the Lord's face shine upon you and give you peace.